Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine. Here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the evening of January 11, 2024 in the United States, the morning of January 12, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the Gaza situation, the New York Times reported today that Qatar is negotiating between Hamas and Israel about supplying medications to the hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip, in exchange for Israel allowing the entrance of more medical supplies into Gaza. According to reports, the topic was broached with a delegation of the families of hostages that visited Qatar last week, and Hamas and Israel are actually close to an agreement on this specific issue. Regarding the other Qatari deal, that is a much broader hostage exchange deal leading all the way to a complete ceasefire, Israel responded to that deal with asking for clarifications from Qatar, did not reject it outright. Qatar in turn clarified that the deal does not include the exile of Hamas leadership, which is one of the points that made Hamas reject it outright. Other news, the Saudi Ilaf network reported that sources within Hamas are stating that the Gaza leadership has begun making its own decisions about the fighting and progression of the war and hostage deals without consulting the external leadership. So what is important to understand is that Hamas is divided between the external leadership and the internal leadership. Officially, the external leadership, led by Ismail Haniyeh, is the ultimate leader of Hamas. However, the external leadership has lost a lot of its control during the war, and right now the war and Hamas's activities and reportedly any decisions on hostage deals as well are all being done by the internal Gaza leadership, led primarily by Yahya Sinwar, his brother Muhammad Sinwar, and the leader of the Al-Qassam brigades, Muhammad Def. Moving on to the fighting within the Gaza Strip, there was again, like yesterday, very few rockets sent in the last 24 hours. One barrage of rockets targeted the areas of Kisufim. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the north of the Gaza Strip, a substantial tunnel network was detonated today in the northern parts of Gaza City, and the tunnel had reached all the way near to the Erez crossing that is the most northern part of the Gaza Strip. In the center of the Gaza Strip, there's substantial gun battles reported in the El Maghazi refugee camp. The IDF reportedly is continuing its activities within that refugee camp and taking over different sites. There was a lot of gun battles reported throughout the day. There was also substantial bombing reported in the Deir al-Balach area. Moving on south towards Han Yunis, substantial IDF activity was reported spreading throughout the entire city. The IDF is now operating both in the heart of the city, north, east, as well as south. There were different reports today that the IDF has located over 300 tunnel entrances in the city, some of these leading to vast underground networks, some of them tactical tunnels, and some of them used as weapons caches. Today, the IDF specifically allowed different international reporters to visit some of these tunnels. The reporters also took pictures of the different areas that hostages were kept in the tunnels. Some of them were kept in cages. Reportedly, these were hostages that were kept there that were kidnapped on October 7th and were released in the previous truce that occurred in November. In other news, there was a report of a missile that was shot and hit a car in the El Manara neighborhood in the eastern parts of Han Yunis, killing at least 8 people. I mention this because, again, this usually refers more to targeted assassinations rather than the quote-unquote regular bombings that occur in the Gaza Strip. We'll likely find out about that in the next few days. Other important news relating to the south of the Gaza Strip, in the northern Mawasi area. Mawasi is the area by the sea, which up until now has been one of the safe zones. There were reports coming in that the IDF issued evacuation orders to the northern Mawasi area, ordering civilians to evacuate towards Deir al-Balach, since the military is preparing to operate there in the coming days. This is critically important because up until now, Mawasi was the first area that was considered a safe zone. Then afterwards, Rafah was also declared largely an area that refugees can go to or internally displaced people can go to. Right now, at least in a small area in the northern parts of the Mawasi, the IDF is planning its activity. According to the UN, this is going to affect at least 18,000 civilians, as well as 9 internally displaced shelters that are located within the area that is ordered to be evacuated. Other news, the IDF published figures today regarding the tunnels that it has uncovered so far in the Gaza Strip, estimating that they were built with over 6,000 tons of concrete and over 18,000 tons of metals. The tunnels span hundreds of kilometers, and it is estimated that they cost tens of millions of dollars and have been built over at least 10 years. Regarding casualties, 14 IDF soldiers reported injured in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of IDF soldiers that were injured since the invasion began to 1,203. The Palestinian Health Ministry is reporting that 112 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians that were killed since the war began in the Gaza Strip to 23,469. 59,604 people are reported injured in the Gaza Strip, but there are also suspected between 8,000 and 10,000 people that are still trapped under the rubbles of the different buildings. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, the Palestinian Health Ministry reported today that over 500,000 cases of infectious diseases are being reported in the refugee camps in the south. This is a growing concern. The World Health Organization is continuously stating that there's going to be a massive influx of different diseases due to a lack of clean water and medical supplies in the south. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip, over 500,000 cases of infectious diseases are already reported. It also reported that hospital capacity in the Gaza Strip is at 340%. In addition, it stated that 6,200 injured people need immediate evacuation from the Gaza Strip, and that 10,000 cancer patients are in mortal danger due to the shutting down of the Turkish hospital and the inability to get medical treatment. Other news related to the humanitarian situation, the UN and the World Health Organization reported that another medical supply mission and a mission to supply clean water reservoirs to the northern parts of the Gaza Strip was cancelled, adding that in January the vast majority of these missions have been cancelled compared to December. There's been reported almost every day that the UN is trying to coordinate with the IDF safe passage to bring either medical supplies or clean water trucks or things like that towards the north. However, due to the eruption of fighting or due to cancelling of permits, these missions keep on being cancelled. The IDF reported that 201 trucks entered the Gaza Strip today carrying food, water, and medical supplies. Amidst the case that is going on in the ICJ, the IDF coordinator of activities in the territories put out a special statement stating, and I quote, "Israel has never stopped and will never stop the supply of any humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip." This is, of course, not true. When the war began, Israel did not allow any humanitarian aid trucks to come in, and it took several weeks until this was negotiated. However, leading up to the court case, that is what the IDF has put out. The UN reported, in turn, that 145 trucks entered rather than 201. There's no explanation for the disparity between these two. Both reported that the trucks came both from Kerem Shalom and through Rafah. It is possible that it is simply differences in times of when the reports came out. Moving on to the West Bank, there was substantial IDF activity reported in the Jabba village near Jenin. The IDF reportedly entered in order to arrest the commander of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad Jabba unit, Majdi Pashapsha. He was killed in a gun battle as the IDF attempted to arrest him. Substantial weapons cache was located in his house, and 5 Palestinians are also reported injured during this operation. Other IDF activity was reported in the villages of Krayot and Antaba. 24 Palestinians were reported arrested in the West Bank in the last 24 hours. In addition, there was a report of a weapons smuggling operation that was intercepted by different Israeli security forces, and that 2 people were arrested. Other news, it was reported today that a month ago 2 Palestinians from East Jerusalem were arrested under the suspicion that they were trying to join ISIS and receiving orders from ISIS in an attempt to create pipe bombs and carry out an attack in Jerusalem. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, there were rockets and missiles sent from Lebanon towards Israel throughout the day. Rockets targeted the areas of Margaliot, Manara, and Misgav causing electrical failures. The rockets were also sent towards Metula, and there were missiles towards Adamit. A barrage of 10 rockets was sent towards Kiryat Shmona. These hit several houses. Hezbollah stated that this specific barrage was a retaliation to an IDF attack. There were also different alerts of drone attacks in the areas. Regarding IDF retaliations, these targeted a wide range of Hezbollah targets, including different military infrastructures, lookout posts, and other infrastructures belonging to Hezbollah throughout southern Lebanon. Hezbollah reported that in one of the IDF retaliations, the IDF attacked a civil defense center in the Khanin village and 2 people were killed. According to the report, this center belongs to the Islamic Health Organization, which is one of the Hezbollah social service outlets. The IDF spokesperson in Arabic later tweeted a picture showing that Hezbollah had put out an obituary of these people. One of them was shown with Hezbollah's military wing symbol on the side, and then Hezbollah had erased that and put out the different symbol with him as an aid worker. The IDF is claiming that they are part of Hezbollah's military wing. Hezbollah is claiming that they are medical workers. Saudi Al Arabiya Network also reported that IDF planes were seen flying in low passes over Beirut throughout the day. Political news, Amos Hochstein, the U.S. Special Envoy to the area, met today with Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati and with the Speaker of the House, and stated at the end of the meetings that he is aiming to achieve a diplomatic solution to the situation that has emerged in southern Lebanon and northern Israel. Al-Arabi al-Jadid quoted sources in the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon, stating that the priority right now is to re-establish calm in southern Lebanon and a ceasefire in Gaza, and only then to move on to negotiating the border disputes and implementing UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which is supposed to evacuate Hezbollah to the northern parts of the Litani. So this is a bit of a different statement that has been recently. Until now, a lot of the U.S. statements have been about finding some sort of diplomatic solution that will push Hezbollah north of the Litani. According to at least this report in Al-Arabi al-Jadid, what Hossein is trying to do right now is come up with a solution that will allow the situation to go back to being calm and only then negotiate what is going to be. It is very unlikely that Israel is going to agree to that order of events. Moving on to the regional development, the Maritime Coalition Force, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, launched today a major assault against the Houthis in Yemen. Weapons and drones planes were attacked from the air, sea, and submarines with barrages of cruise missiles. There are also reports that the attack was aided by Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and Holland. According to different reports, the attack included targets in Sana'a, which is the capital of Yemen, Ta'az, and the Hudaydah port. Between 10 to 12 targets were attacked. Al Jazeera quoted sources stating that radar stations and other communications arrays were also attacked. The Saudi Al-Hadith network reported that the airport in Hodeidah was attacked as well. This comes after several days that there has been a buildup. Coalition forces stated that they're going to start retaliating against the Houthis, not just defending ships, but actually carrying out retaliations against the different Houthis' activities. This now came after several warnings that the coalition issued towards the Houthis. The Houthis threatened major retaliations, stating that US and UK nautical activities will now be the target of their retaliations. Other news, hours before this, Iran took over a cargo ship carrying oil from Iraq to Turkey, claiming that the ship was a U.S. ship that has been confiscated. The ship was boarded off the coast of Oman and changed course towards Iran. There is no report that this ship actually had anything to do with the United States or not. Moving on to some of the political and general trends of the last 24 hours. Al Arabi al-Jadid reported that Egypt categorically rejected Antony Blinken's plan to have a UN mission visit the northern parts of the Gaza Strip to assess the situation and map out the possibility of civilians returning. According to the report, Egypt is concerned that a delegation will be made up of international and Arab actors, but not Egypt, and that this will be used as a pressure valve against Egypt to possibly enable the entrance of Palestinian refugees into the country. So what Egypt is concerned about is that this UN mission is very likely to find that the northern parts of the Gaza Strip are completely destroyed, and that this population that is now in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip cannot safely return, and that this will in turn be used as a pressure valve against Egypt to allow refugees in. Unclear what Egypt is proposing, if they want to be in charge of the delegation. That was not part of the report. Moving on to the main political development in the last 24 hours. The case in the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, where South Africa is charging Israel genocide, opened today. South Africa is asking the court to issue an immediate injunction against Israel and require Israel to stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip under suspicion of genocide while the case is heard, something that will likely take between 4 to 5 years. Now I want to stop and take just a moment to analyze the intricacies of this. When a country is accused of genocide, that accusation can be substantiated if the accuser proves two things. One is intent to either annihilate in its entirety or a portion of a segment of a population, and also carrying out the acts. In terms of carrying out the acts, it does not have to be just direct killing. It can also be denying medical aid, trying to reduce the population, denying food, and things like that. And this is the main thing that South Africa is trying to prove. In the opening statements, South Africa stated that Hamas is not considered a state and therefore cannot be party to the treaty. However, that Hamas has also committed atrocities and that other acts can be charged with it in different forums, but South Africa cannot ask the court to take any action against Hamas. South Africa emphasized in its claims that the war has to be viewed in the historical context of 75 years of displacement and apartheid policies that have been leveled against the Palestinians. They also emphasized the siege in Gaza, claiming that it began actually in 2004. It in fact began in 2007. Also claimed things that are very easily disproven by Israel. Israel will make its case tomorrow, such as that 80% of the world's population that is suffering from hunger is located in the Gaza Strip. It also made a lot of claims about factual things on the ground that is going to be a lot harder for Israel to disprove, such as that Israel systematically stopped the entrance of humanitarian aid into Gaza, and that there's mass hunger in Gaza, and the nature of the bombings that were carried out, and various different things like that. One of the noteworthy things that South Africa put forth is substantiating intent. One of the difficult things often in proving that a country is out to commit genocide is not the fact that in war atrocities occur, but actually proving intent. In this case, South Africa's case of proving intent is actually much easier than proving what is actually the facts that are happening on the ground. In their case today, South Africa laid out and quoted Prime Minister Netanyahu, Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant, Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir, Nissim Vaturi of the Likud, Amichai Eliyahu, and all kinds of other ministers, and simply brought forth their claims about what Israel is going to do in Gaza. Yoav Gallant, for example, the Minister of Defense, is quoted as saying when the war began, there will be no electricity, food, water, or fuel in Gaza. All will be closed because we are fighting animals. You wanted hell, you'll get hell. Amichai Eliyahu is quoted as saying Israel needs to find ways to make Gazans suffer, and many other quotes were brought in, so the intent is actually going to be somewhat easy to prove legally. However, building the case in terms of facts is actually going to be the harder thing that South Africa tries to prove. Some estimates about what's going to happen, a lot of international law experts wrote today that they expect that the ICJ is likely going to issue a few injunctions to Israel, such as to avoid specific actions or allow humanitarian aid to enter unconditionally. However, it is also likely not to issue an injunction calling on Israel to carry out a ceasefire. It also stated that what will likely happen after they issue these immediate injunctions, they will give South Africa time to prepare its case, which is likely going to take unto itself 6 to 8 months. In Israel, there were massive waves of condemnations of the opening of the hearings. These were made by Prime Minister Netanyahu, Minister of Defense Gallant, Foreign Ministry, lots of other Israeli politicians, all commenting on the hypocrisy and calling South Africa the Hamas's legal wing. Moving on to speculations regarding the future of the Gaza Strip, despite the fact that the inflammatory rhetoric of different politicians in Israel is being used in this case, they are still being issued. Member of Knesset Simcha Rotman from the Religious Zionism Party today spoke at a conference that is titled Lessons from Gaza, the End of Two States. He again reiterated there will be no Palestinian Authority, no UNRWA, and that these are not going to be part of any governing body in Gaza. He also related to the plan of quote-unquote willful immigration from Gaza, stating that this is supported not only by the public, but also by different politicians, adding, and I quote, "But I don't think you need to encourage Gazans to leave. They all want to leave. They just need to not cooperate with Hamas." Adjacent to this, cabinet member Bezalel Smotrich also repeated his claims, stating, and I quote, "If we do not control Gaza Strip, then those 2 million people will run their own lives. And since they are all Israel haters, there will be a terror government. To rule militarily, you must rule civilian life. I propose complete Israeli control over the Gaza Strip. To have complete control, you must have civilian settlements." Aryeh Deri, the leader of the Shas party and cabinet member, stated in an interview today, I'm quoting, "Israel plans to stay in the Gaza Strip with large forces for years. Removing the threat means that the heads of Hamas will be gone, and that the armed forces will be gone, and that there will be another force that we can live with. We will not trust an international or an Arab force. God willing, the army will stay to preserve our safety in one way or another." And he added, "We will stay in the Strip, but not occupy it or settle in it. Israel does not plan on running the Gaza Strip and being responsible for 2 million people." Relating to actual plans regarding the day after in Israel, the Israeli expanded cabinet met today and on the agenda was discussing the day after plan. However, at the beginning of the meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that the topic will not be discussed today and it was in fact not brought up. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.